Hello, everyone. My name is Moshe Naveh from the SAP Community team. Welcome to today's SAP Community call about consuming OData v4 services using SAP Cloud SDK. Today, we have Matthias, Danvi, and Jordan from the SAP Cloud SDK product team. Please take it away.
Thanks, Moshe. Hello from my side too. I'm Jordan from the Cloud SDK team, and I also welcome you to this call. As Moshe already announced, we will tell you a little bit more about the new OData v4 support, and we'll be happy to provide you a demo. Next, please. As usual, we will not make any official announcement today, so please make your investment decisions based on what's officially available in this point of time, and not based on eventual forward-looking statements that we will do in this presentation today. Next, please. Thanks. As an introduction, I want to give you a brief overview about the Cloud SDK, what we are doing and what the benefits are. And I want to use this picture for that. So if you work on the SAP Cloud Platform and if you are extending your business processes with small apps that you deploy on the SAP Cloud Platform, then probably the Cloud SDK might be a right tool for you. What we provide, like shown on this picture, is first of all, a way to connect to different SAP solutions, like having a look to the left, like S4HANA, C4HANA, by design, Ariba, and others. And also an easy and fast way to consume SAP Cloud Platform services that are provided by SAP or third parties over the SAP Cloud Platform. If you have a look at the right, you see the third component of the Cloud SDK, which is a toolkit for continuous delivery, which will allow you to deploy your cloud applications with a very high degree of automation, so that you have a reproducible, fast, and easily set up build process. These are basically the three components of Cloud SDK. And like announced today, we want to talk about OData v4, which will be probably the way to the left that you see on this picture, or better said, the way how you can connect to different SAP solutions and other OData v4 endpoints. Next, please. Before we get into OData v4, this is a brief overview of what's new and what's happening recently in Cloud SDK, especially since the last community call, which was a month ago. So like already mentioned, we support Java and JavaScript. So if you program apps in Java or JavaScript, then a Cloud SDK might be of use for you. On the Java side, we still work on the recently released support for OData v4. We work on stabilizing the support and also on adding new features that we'll see in a few moments. Moving to JavaScript, there we unified configuration so that actually the Cloud SDK now supports reading out SAP Cloud Platform configurations, so that different things like, for example, destinations don't need to be configured twice, but only need to be configured once for the SAP Cloud Platform. And this configuration will be automatically picked up by Cloud SDK as well. Another improvement that happened on the JavaScript side recently is we worked on improving the support for connecting from the cloud application to different on-premise systems. Next, please. This leads me to the agenda of today. After having introduced what happened recently in Cloud SDK, I'll give over to Matthias to tell us a little bit more about OData v4. And after that, Tanvi will show us a nice demo. And after that, we'll get to the conclusion. And having said this, I hand over to Matthias. Your stage.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jordan, for the introduction. Um, yeah, so let's get more detailed to the topic of today. And I want to give you a brief overview about what is new in OData v4, how support for that looks like in the Cloud SDK, and what you can achieve with it. So first up, just a very quick recap. I think most of you will be familiar with the OData standard. So in general, it's a standard for implementing RESTful HTTP services. There is a version 2 of this standard, and then version 3 was developed, which is, I think, not that widespread, but then version 4.0 was developed and released by the holders, and there quite some new functionality came in that actually extends the standard with new features, with new capabilities. And I've outlined a few of them here. So first and foremost, there are new and more powerful query options. For instance, $search was introduced, but also existing query functions became more powerful, have more features that they cover, especially the filtering that is possible. There are new filter conditions, but also new functions were introduced that you can perform within filters. And also in particular, the expand statements are more powerful and allow for now fully recursive queries. So you can nest a fully qualified query within an expand statement. Just querying navigational properties on an entity. Also, bound and unbound functions and actions were introduced previously in OData v2. There were function imports, which were now a bit more expanded and separated out. So functions now take care of things which do not trigger a state change on the servers. So they are idempotent. You can call them many times. Something like, for instance, computing a distance over something, while actions actually trigger some state change. So there is a bit of an improvement there, differentiating between those two. And then there are also other improved features, like, for instance, $count, which allow for either more flexible or more clear statements and requests. One example, a request that is possible with v4 that wasn't possible before is requesting all business partners where at least one of the associated addresses is located in Potsdam. There you can leverage any feature of OData v4, so filtering based on a collection where at least one of the items meets a certain criteria. So that is a rough overview of the more powerful features of OData v4. And so that is also, of course, the reason why then services move towards the standard. Now for the question of how do we support this in the Cloud SDK and what does the Cloud SDK offer? A quick recap of how the current support for v2 services looks like. So there is quite a sophisticated tool set in the Cloud SDK to interact with OData services, so version 2 services in general. One part of that is that the SDK ships pre-generated libraries for S/4HANA services, and then offers a fluent API to build and execute requests for such services. That means that the services are represented via a data model on the Java level that exposes what the service is capable of, and that allows for sending out requests which are not only correct in terms of OData standard, but also makes sense on a semantic level. Then we have a generator in place that also allows for generating libraries for your own services. And of course, in the end, these OData client is integrated with other Cloud SDK features. For instance, you can use it together with resilience, or it is able to leverage the destinations of the Cloud SDK. So let's look a bit how this looks in practice. Here I just picked one service as an example. So here I took the business partner service, and which is generated code and represents the business partner service on S/4HANA. And there we can, for instance, read a list of business partners, here selecting the last name and filtering by the first name, and then returning with top 10 the top 10 results that this query would produce. So yeah, that is how a Fluent API looks like, allows for type safe selection filtering and so on and so forth. So here in this case, the select statement only accepts fields which belong to the business partner. So it would not allow now to select a sales order, for instance, on the business partner if that's not a field on this entity. So it is really aware of what the service is capable of, and you can discover what the service is capable of through this Fluent API, through if you have your favorite developer environment IDE at hand, then you can see in the drop down what is available. A bit more deeper, you can also construct a bit more complex queries. So for instance, you can expand navigational properties. Here in this case, the to customer is a navigational property of the business partner entity. And so the type safety also extends to more complicated queries where you nest, for instance, within expand statements. Yeah. So that is just to give you a feeling of how the support for V2 services currently looks like. There's also more. So for instance, batch requests are supported, function imports, and also stuff that is commonly required like e-tags, so sending a version identifier, and also CSRF token handling, which is a security measure, is also handled by the SDK automatically within OData v2. So that being said, you have, I think, a rough idea how the v2 service or data services can be used together with the Cloud SDK. And that allows me now to come to the actual topic in that sense, and showing about OData v4. All right, so what have we done with OData v4? There is a fully new OData client, which is underlying under this implementation that you just saw in order to perform these requests. Then we have a Fluent API, which is very similar to the OData v2 API. And that is also the reason why I just showed it, because for a v4 service, it will look very much similar. However, with more capabilities, obviously. Again, we also have a generator, a CLI, and the Maven plugin in place to generate this code for your own services. And currently we have support already for create, read, update, and delete operations, as well as unbound functions and actions. And of course, then this implementation brings support for many of the new / improved features of OData v4 that differentiated from OData v2, such as, for instance, here I listed some, any, all, contains, and $search. that I also introduced in the beginning. Yeah, so on a high level, to sum it up, if you have already used the capabilities of the Cloud SDK to talk to OData v2 services, then it will be very easy for you to leverage the SDK also for v4 services. And yeah, to give you a better impression of how you can do that and what you can achieve there, I would like to hand it over to Tanvi so that we can look at a bit more practical examples of how that looks like.
Yeah, hello everyone. I am Tanvi. And also thank you, Matthias. Yeah, so I will dive into the demo now. So for the demo, I will start with demonstrating first how we generate VDM classes, and then I will proceed with to make requests on OData v4 services. So the generation part of VDM is very similar to, it's actually same as OData v2. We have 3 ways of generating VDM. I'm going to demonstrate one of them, which is through Maven plugin. And for that, you have to add the Maven plugin in your Maven module POM, like here. And also you have to provide your service metadata files in one of the folders. So for me, it's this one, EDMX folder. This is my input directory where I've placed my service metadata file, which is business partner. And so, yeah, and so you have to also configure the Maven plugin according to your project. So here for me, the input directory is EDMX, which is this, which I've mentioned here. And also you can give your output directory and your package name. And with this plugin, you can add another plugin, this one, which will treat the output directory as a source root. So my output directory is VDM, so I've mentioned it here. And after that, you can just build your project, and then like this, you can build your project, and then you will have the generated VDM in your target directory. It will take a few seconds. So yeah, so in my target, I have this VDM output directory now, and here this is the package name that I gave, and here you can see that I have the services. So I've given one service here, so I have the interface for that service and the default implementation, and also in here I have all the model classes which we can use to build requests. So now, as the VDM is in place, we can move to making the requests. So to make the requests, it's very similar to OData v2. You have to set up the destination. Also, you have to build your service object like this. And then with the service object, you can make many operations on it. So I will show you that in a minute. Yeah. So here you can see that on the service object, we have many operations. So so we have all the CRUD operations and other operations like this count. So this get all business partners read all. This is create, delete. This is to get a particular business partner, and that's update. So for this demo, mostly I will use the read all operation. So yeah, and so let's select some properties. So here, these are all the properties associated with business partner entity. So these are simple properties like email, currency, company, and this 2PP2 contact is one of the navigation property, which is a collection type. So maybe I will select company and also maybe currency code. And then here you can see we have all the operations that we can perform. We can filter, we can do top, like we only want top 20 results, and I will get into other operations as well. But yeah, so for now, let's put a simple filter, like we want to say, I want all the business partner where company is maybe not equal to SAP, let's say. And then here I can say I need top 20, and then I can say execute. And to execute it, we have to provide the destination object that we configured. And yeah. Yeah. So let's execute this. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so here we have all the business partners where the company is not SAP, so it's not SAP, and yeah. So this is a very simple filter expression, but we can also provide Boolean expressions under filter, and let me demonstrate that. So for that, so this is my query. So here the filter expression right now has only company equal to SAP, and we can make it a Boolean expression. So here you can see that we have and, or, not operations, Boolean operators. And let's say that we want business partner, currency code equal to euro, maybe. Yeah, and also I have to make this service unexecutable. So let's delete this. Yeah, so let's execute our request. Yeah, so here we have all the business partners where the company is SAP and the currency code is euro. And this is actually the navigation property that I've also selected in this query. Yeah, moving further, in OData v4, we can also we can expand our collections, and also we can perform some operations on it, like filter operation and order by. So basically, OData v4, you can construct a complete query on your navigation property. So yeah. So for that, let me quickly demonstrate that as well. So here I have a query which where I've selected the navigation property, and on that navigation property, you can have a select where you can say that I want only first name or last name. And then on top of that, after selecting, you have all these operations on it. So so maybe for this, I will say order by, and we can say that I want our contact first name to be ordered as descending. Yeah. So yeah, so for that I have to make this executable. Let's, yeah. here. So so you can see that here, this is my navigation property, and here the first name, it is so the contacts are sorted in a descending order by first name. So this is Isabel and that's Dominic. It's sorted. Yeah. And also now you can provide multiple fields in order by. So what I mean is that here in order by business partner, I can say that I want a company to be ascending, and then I want the email as descending. What it means is that if I have a conflicting data items for ascending company, then the email, then it will be sorted based on the email, and it will, yeah. So, and let's execute this. Yeah, so here, maybe if I go at the top, so you can see that the company, that's the conflicting data item where it is sorted on based on the email address. It's the supplier here, and here it's customer. Yeah, so the next thing that I would like to show is the count feature. Oh, sorry. So as I showed before, we have this count operation on service object. So if I say count business partner, and then I say execute, and then I just print this count, and yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot to get the destination, and then just execute this. Oh. Just a moment. Yeah. So here we have the count for business partners. So we have total 91 business partners. Also with this count, we can also filter our count. So here you can also say that I want business partner where company is equal to SAP. Okay. Let's see what it says. So here it will count the business partners where the company is SAP, and we have only 2. So this is how you can now do multiple things with count as well. Moving forward, the next is maybe the next is the search. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so in OData v4, we can now search our entities. So how we can make request for that is, so here, well, when we read all entities, read all, yeah, when we perform read all, then you can see that we have search, and here on search, you can give a simple string as well. or you can give a search expression on it. So let's make it a bit complicated and build a search expression. So maybe so that means that I want, let's say I want to search the entities which have SAP keyword, and also maybe Germany. Execute and then give the destination, and then I have to print this out. Yeah. So here, this demo service that I'm actually using does not implement the search operation. So that's why we are getting this exception. So maybe I showed it because it's a cool way to demonstrate how we can do error handling with service with our Cloud SDK. So in Cloud SDK, we have this is a exception thrown by Cloud SDK. It's a specific exception. We have a hierarchy of exceptions that you can use. So if I can put it in a try catch block like this, and I can then say that OData error exception. And here we can see what's the HTTP code, what's the reason. We can also see the request. So maybe here we say what the HTTP code is, and yeah. So here you can see that we have 501. So you can place multiple catch blocks and leverage the exception hierarchy that we provide. Yeah, so because there are certain features like the search that is not implemented in this underlying service, I've also used, I will use another service to demonstrate that, which is an OData reference service. So let's proceed with that. Let's make it non-executable. Yeah. So for this service, we have entity person, and here, I can quickly show you how search performs. So here you can see in search, I want all the person which has United in it. And yeah, so I've given the other destination object for this service. Yeah. So here, basically, it searches the complete entity item, and anywhere in that entity item, if it finds United, it will return that entity as a result in it. So all the entities that have United in it. Another thing that I can show with this service is that in expand, when we can query our collection or navigation properties, we can also provide filter operations. So earlier I showed you that we can provide order by, but now let's see how filter works on expand. So here I can say, here I can say that I want person where the first name contains, and also I can do a Boolean expression, and I can say that that maybe the person's last name starts with A. So here we will get, oh, okay, sorry. Okay. Yeah. So here basically we are performing, so apparently there are no no such results. Maybe if I change it to or, then I might find something. So here basically we are putting filter on the navigation property. So yeah, so here you can see that here the service returns this. So we have, yeah. Yeah, and lastly, I would like to show another cool feature of OData v4, which is to perform any and all, which basically puts a filter on the entity based on the navigation properties. So here, what you can do is you can say filter person dot to friends. So this is the navigation property for our entity. And you can say, so here you can say that you have any and all. So that means that if I say any, and I say any, maybe first name starts with A, then it will give us all the people whose friends have any friend has a first name starting with A. So, yeah. Here we go. So we have here, yeah. So if any of the friend here will have A, it will return that entity. Yeah, here. So one of the contacts has a angel name. Yeah. So with that, I think I've shown everything that I wanted to show. Thank you again for listening, and yeah, I'm handling this to Matthias now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tanvi. I had to find the unmute button again for sharing. The demo, I think, it showed quite extensively how to actually use the Cloud SDK with OData v4 services, coming from a generating from a service specification up until the actual usage and issuing the requests, and then looking at the responses. Okay, so to sum it up, what is supported as of today? So you saw already we quite have support for quite some of the OData v4 features already built in, including fully nested queries on navigational properties, but also a lot of filter expressions that are new. So yeah, you can get started with using that today. And then what is not yet supported compared to V2 are batch requests. but also bound functions and actions. So which is also a new feature with OData v4, where a function or action can be performed specifically on an entity, and that is as of today not yet available. That sums it up in terms of what I wanted to say on the OData v4 support. So again, try this out if you want to get started. There's a documentation in place where basically all of these things that we now showed also in the demo are described and how to get started with them. So yeah, check that one out. And with that, I would hand it back to Jordan to finish up the official part of the call.
Thank you very much, Danvi and Matthias, for this great presenting. Before we conclude the session and open up for questions, I want to invite you to learn more about Cloud SDK. We offer different channels like Open SAP course, but also some tutorials on the SAP tutorial pages. If you follow the SAP community area, you can also find our blogs or question and answer area there. You can use the SAP Cloud SDK tag so that you can easily filter the content and find the articles related to SAP Cloud SDK. In case you have any questions, want to try out something, or you don't understand something and you cannot find it in the documentation, of course, we are there for you to help. You can either contact us on our email address, which is displayed here on the right. You'll get the slides afterwards. Or, of course, you can use one of the channels like Stack Overflow or the SAP Community questions and answer area. Speaking about that, today we already have some questions in the chat. And with this, I want to conclude the session, open up for questions, and maybe we can go to the next slide, where we want to say thank you for attending. And now we'll have a look at the questions. So please feel free to either type into the chat, or if it's technically possible, unmute yourself. We'll have a look at the questions. Thanks.
Yeah, there is one question in the Q&A section which I would like to address, and then you can also take the time to put up more questions. So the question was, will this be supported in Node CAP CDS/CQL? So the relationship between the Cloud SDK and CAP is twofold. In one sense is that in your existing CAP project, you can of course use the Cloud SDK and also use the OData v4 features to query an OData service. On the other hand, you can of course also provide OData services with CAP. And on that also, I think with CAP v4 services are possible, and you can use the Cloud SDK to invoke or to access OData v4 services that were created or that are provided by a CAP project. So I'm not perfectly sure if that fully answers the question. But yeah, if not, then please specify a bit more. But that is the general notion on that.
Thanks, Matthias. Before we conclude, I want to briefly go through the other two questions that we received. First one was if Cloud SDK is available in the SAP Business Application Studio. The question here is not exactly, because if you want to use the Cloud SDK, it's best to actually add it into your project as a dependency, so that you get automatically all of the SDK capabilities, which means that for example, if you want to access S/4HANA APIs, you can simply add the dependency to your project, so that you don't need to change anything in your IDE, and it doesn't matter which IDE you are using. Which leads me to the second question, which was about accessing C4C APIs. Like already mentioned, some of the APIs are supported out of the box by Cloud SDK, such as the S4HANA client that is built into the Cloud SDK. And for other solutions like C4C, the generator should be used like demonstrated by Tanvi, so that this is to distinguish here. If you have S4HANA Cloud or S4HANA, then you're safe and you're good to go by simply adding Cloud SDK as dependency. If you have another solution by SAP or any other OData endpoint, then you need to use the generator. But basically what will come out of the generator is exactly the same client. All right, if we, there's a comment on the first one, Matthias, if you want to have a look in the chat.
I now cannot open the link, but yeah, maybe we can also follow up on that one.
Yeah, so Sergio, if you want to contact us over one of the channels, it would be great. Then we can answer you in more detail, of course. If there are no other questions, then I'll hand over to Moshe to conclude.
Thank you very much, Jordan. Thank you all for joining the call today. The recording will be available on the SAP Community Calls page. Thank you.